Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling great, having a fantastic start to your day, and I hope you all have been having a great week out there so far. Thank you all for tuning in this morning as we try to figure out what's going to happen weather-wise for your neck of the woods. There's a couple areas of interest to watch that could impact your weather for today, and we'll speak on that in great detail for everybody in the lower 48. And then stay tuned for the second half of the video. We will give you guys some updated information from the overnight model runs into this morning's model runs about this storm system coming up this weekend. That has been a heavy topic in the videos throughout the last couple days, and will continue to be a heavy topic in the videos here in the next several days as we get into this weekend and really try to fine-tune the details to create a forecast for you folks on what potentially could happen. Severe weather, winter weather, good old-fashioned rain, a lot of winds. This storm can bring everything to the table, so we're going to continue to try to figure it out. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. I'll pray over it, and I promise you others will pray over it too. If you're a first-time viewer, it's a family type atmosphere on this channel. It's a little different, more of a personal feel, so welcome. But anyways, let's get rolling. We'll start off by looking at the wider vapor loop. Hopefully my clicker will work, and it looks like it is, so we're good to go. So I want to talk about the general pattern about what's going on out here. So if you notice, the white color's right in here that indicates more moisture in the atmosphere, and we certainly have a fire hose of moisture that's funneling into Washington, areas of Oregon. But if you notice, it's moving like this, right up into the Pacific Northwest, comes all the way up here into Canada, and then it comes screeching right on back down throughout the high plains, kind of levels off right into here and kind of goes off into the Atlantic Ocean. So this is a tall ridge building all the way up into Canada, and this is a moving ridge. So at the same time it's tall, and then it's moving to the east, so west to east. This will kind of flatten out and not be as tall once we get into the next few days, but this will really influence the weather into the central portion of the country and then eventually the eastern portion of the country over the next couple of days, bringing above average temperatures for a good portion of the country. December's pretty much going how we expected it to go, at least for the first half of the month. Warmer than average temperatures. This is pretty typical of a strong El Nino. But we are eyeballing the kind of the last, I would say, last third of December for maybe something to shift, but we won't speak too far in advance as of right now. So this is the general pattern right now, and basically the avenue of where all this moisture is traveling. Let's get this back off your screen. So let's talk about what actually is falling out there. And yeah, looks like the radar's coming in good. So I saw a video this morning. It was snowing pretty hard in the Chicago suburbs. So let me know what you're seeing around Chicago and Illinois, even into areas of Indiana, maybe Michigan. Let me see, or let me hear about what you're actually seeing out there. I would love to know. This area of the country hasn't seen a ton of snow yet this season. You know, we had the Halloween event that dropped a unusual early season snow for some of these areas, but so far this season have not seen a lot. A little bit of moisture over Lake Superior, a lot of moisture over the Pacific Northwest, and this will continue over the next 24 to 36 hours. Flood watches are in place. You guys just continue to get hit with a lot of rain. Much warmer system due to the fact that this is a ridge in place. You don't have a lot of cold air with this, so I mean, even in the higher elevations, it's just good old-fashioned rain. You got to get way up there for the fall snow. Some lingering light snow drifting around the down east areas of Maine. And then, of course, we got this system, just good old-fashioned rain in areas of Ohio. But there is reports of mixing in certain areas of Indiana, and I think I even saw a report of some mixing in Ohio. So a little bit of moisture with an active southern jet, but it's way down here in the Gulf of Mexico. So a little bit of moisture potentially creeping up into Brownsville, Texas. But that's what's going on right now. What about the Storm Prediction Center today? Had some unusual weather, like around eastern Kentucky, western Virginia, into northeast areas of Tennessee yesterday. We had some cold air aloft. We had some hailstorms yesterday. Not really much in the way with a lot of lightning and thunder, but we had some heavier showers and some small thunderstorms that produced a good bit of small hail. And that's what happens when you have a lot of cold air aloft. But today, no thunderstorms are forecast to happen. Pretty stable environment for the most part, so don't have to worry about any storms or anything like that. Excessive rainfall outlook, we do have a slight risk. That means there's at least a 15% chance of flash flood guidance being met, and just the ongoing flooding threat up here in western Washington State and western Oregon, especially northwestern Oregon. We continue just to get that fire hose of moisture that pumps up into the area. So please be aware of flash flooding. I'm sure you guys are well aware how much rain's already fell over the last several days and continues to fall out there. Watches, warnings, advisories, some dense fog in North Dakota, a little bit of fog in Kentucky. But check it out. You got winter weather advisories from all the way in the far western county of Maryland, kind of spying the Appalachian Mountains here in West Virginia, the higher elevations, a couple counties in Virginia, and then also in North Carolina and Tennessee. Northwest flow will set up a little bit later this evening, and if you live about 3,000, 3,500 feet up, you could get a couple inches of snow in some of these areas. And you get, about 5,000 feet up, 6,000 feet up, which isn't a whole lot of areas in the Appalachian Mountains. But some of these areas, you could get upwards to, half a foot of snow, especially in the Great Smoky Mountains. Okay, so we'll kind of zoom into this region here in a second. If you live in the higher elevations, kind of your first, I would say, larger northwest flow events that we've seen so far this season. Flood watches continue to be out for areas of the Pacific Northwest, and we still got some winds that are some high-end winds out there in areas of Wyoming and Montana. So we do have high wind warnings and watches out there, some wind advisories. Let's talk about the southeast first. Okay. Overall, not a whole lot going on, but as we get into this afternoon, some moisture will begin to show up in Kentucky in the form of just some very isolated showers, even central Tennessee, up here in southern sections of Ohio. We keep this going. We get into later this evening, some cold air will work in, just enough where in some of these higher elevations, you will get some snow falling, okay? And then eventually in the mountains of Tennessee, North Carolina, this will fall in the form of snow. We're going to zoom into these areas here in a second. Everybody else in the southeast, pretty quiet. You got developing low pressure, not going to affect anybody on land. Some shower activity, no snow around the Raleigh area, up into the Delmarva region. But you notice the snow really picks up really early tomorrow morning in West Virginia, and you barely can see it, but it's also picking up in North Carolina, Tennessee also, and there could even be some rain mixing with some snow in the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee. It's very possible, and then we get into tomorrow. But a closer look at this potential snow event, well, I wouldn't say potential, it's going to happen for the higher elevations. And here we go. And a lot of times these events can overproduce. And, we get going here in time. This is around 6, 7, 8 p.m. tonight. We got some snow beginning to fall in the higher elevations of Virginia. It really begins to pick up, I would say, in the middle of the night in West Virginia. See these snows right here moved into the higher elevations of eastern West Virginia, and you see these snows. Some of these will break containment, kind of drift into the Waynesville area. I would not be surprised you get some snowflakes mixing in, and in Asheville, I wouldn't be surprised in the higher elevations of North Georgia. And to keep this going, and even though this does not look like a lot, the lift from the higher elevations of like the Smokies, Roman Mountain, will try to squeeze out all this moisture possible, and the snow will really add up. So, if you're traveling tomorrow morning through the Smokies, I reckon that highway will probably be closed. But if you're going over the interstate, over the higher elevations, the mountains in Tennessee, don't be surprised you see some heavy snow falling out there. And this will continue throughout the morning, hours tomorrow morning. And you could even have some snow in the northern areas of the Cumberland Plateau, some snow showers tomorrow morning in areas of southeast Kentucky, the hill region of Kentucky. And this will continue throughout tomorrow also. How much snow could fall? Well, the National Weather Service, this is the Smokies right in here, going for over a half a foot of snow. Okay, Mount LeConte will probably be a breadwinner here, but there'll be other peaks too that really picks up some higher snowfall totals. But the Smokies will probably, I would not be surprised if somebody in the Smokies gets, I would say 8 to 12 inches of snow. Once you get over 6,000 feet in this event, could get some snowflakes mixing in the Gatlinburg area. Wouldn't be surprised one bit. But of course, you get into the higher elevations of West Virginia, good for anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of snow, depending on your elevation. So there is a little discussion from the National Weather Service in Greenville, Spartanburg on this event, but it breaks it down well. It says accumulations of 2 to 3 inches are expected at many elevations above 3,500 feet. A few of the highest ridgetop locations in the Smokies could see around 6 inches of snow by late Wednesday. And it even says the lower elevations may see a dusting or no snow at all. So just a northwest Northwest snow event. These are pretty common in the fall, winter, and even the spring. Okay. Up here in the Northeast, starting off pretty quiet, but an interesting little weather event could occur today. First off, the moisture could mix with a little snow in Ohio throughout the morning and early afternoon hours. You could get a mix in central Ohio. This could fall some light snow in western PA. Some of this light snow could drift into southwest New York, southern tier, maybe even the Finger Lakes region of New York State. You get into this evening, and this is what I want to watch. Could get some light snow in maybe even the Poconos, the Catskills of New York. It's very possible. Maybe some lake influenced snow squalls could come off of Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. Very possible. But then we could get some ocean effect snow that gets going in extreme eastern and southeastern Massachusetts. Okay, and here it is. It starts going at just this one little small area of snow, especially south of Boston. At the same time, you do have some snow falling, like around Rochester potentially tomorrow morning. But you're going to wake up tomorrow morning with some festive snow falling. Okay, it's likely going to accumulate too. See the snow falling in southeast Mass? Okay, you keep this going, and even some snow into Rhode Island. In fact, the National Weather Service going for a dusting of snow to maybe as much as a half an inch of snow in areas of Delaware. Okay, you keep going. My bad, not Delaware, Rhode Island. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm surprised I don't do that more often, but Rhode Island, not Delaware. I know Delaware's down here. I know. But Rhode Island could certainly see a dusting of snow starting off tomorrow morning. So how much snowfall from these just light snows that could mix in with this rain today in Ohio? Maybe a dusting of snow. You could get a dusting of snow in central Ohio, maybe even eastern Ohio. And then you start to get into Pennsylvania. And, you could get some light snowfall amounts in areas, especially these higher hilly regions of Pennsylvania and tucked up against Lake Erie. You could get a couple inches of snow. It's very possible. And some light snowfall accumulation showing up in the southern tier Finger Lakes region. But this is the interesting spot. I really think this starts adding up after midnight tonight into the wee hours of the morning. But, Boston going for around half an inch. South of Boston in the southeast Mass, 1 to 2, maybe 2.5 inches. Somebody could get 3 inches of snow from this. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So if you live south of Boston, southeast of Boston, all right, I think you'll be the breadwinner from this. So, you might get your first snows before people like in Connecticut or Rhode Island gets their first snows. And I mean, that's not totally uncommon. But don't let this shock you when you wake up to maybe a coating of snow on the ground tomorrow morning in these areas. South central U.S., quiet day today. Not really anything expected. Very quiet weather. Enjoy it. It could get much more active here in the coming days with this storm system moving in this weekend. But as far as today, not a whole lot expected. It really isn't. It's pretty quiet. North central U.S., pretty much the same thing. You're dealing with some snows around Chicago. This will drift into northern Indiana. You guys could pick up some light snowfall accumulations this morning in northern Indiana. And you guys could get some light snowfall accumulations from some lake effect energy coming off Lake Superior in the UP of Michigan, especially the western half of the UP of Michigan. Some light snow could fly off the lake, and moderate snow is sometimes, maybe even a burst of heavy snow. Could put a coating on the grassy surfaces out here. And then we get into tonight, and you could get some snow that kind of rides down the eastern shores of Lake Michigan throughout western Michigan and could wake up to some snow showers in northern sections of Indiana. And then we could get some freezing rain that could enter the picture into northern areas and northwestern sections of Minnesota as you're waking up tomorrow morning. Not a whole lot from this. The National Weather Service doesn't like a lot adding up from these snow showers coming off Lake Superior, but you could get a dusting of snow. Out west, really the biggest topic here is the Pacific Northwest. Starting off this morning, going throughout the morning, the afternoon hours. Look at that. Just a funnel of moisture just blasting right into western Washington, extreme northwestern Oregon. And then we get into this evening, we get into the overnight hours. And then finally, when we're waking up tomorrow morning, the tilt will change. And then you'll start to get more heavier rain kind of further down into southwestern Oregon and then areas of northern California. But rainfall just between now and Wednesday morning, man, going for another few inches of rain just over the next 24 hours in Seattle. Yeah, northwestern areas of Oregon. 2 to as much as 5 inches of rain. And you notice it's not, the snow is not going to add up much from this. You got to get way up there, guys, to see heavy snow from this. But if you do live several thousand feet up in the air, you still might get a little bit of snow. But this is really just a warmer system this time. So, and it has been over the last couple of days. Temperatures, a chilly day across the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, temperatures in the 30s and the 40s. The Mid-South, even a chilly day, just temperatures even in the 40s and 50s with this clipper moving through, pumping out that northwest flow event for the southern and central Appalachian Mountains. A cooler day across the southeast, temperatures in the 60s. My mouse is really giving me a hard time. I really need to get a new mouse. I've had the same mouse for a few years now, and it's been giving me a hard time. But 60s down in Texas, 70s in Florida, and for the most part, pretty nice weather for the South. Not too bad for early December standards. Out west, it's starting to get above average again with this ridge really moving in. So above average temperatures just for your general location. Of course, a lot of microclimates out here. So stick to your local forecast. But, I mean, you're getting all the way into the 60s into areas of Montana. That's certainly well above average. And it'll continue to be above average for at least a couple days. So let's talk about this storm system. Let's give you guys some updated information. So we'll start it off for around Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So you notice moisture moving into the western U.S., the northern Rockies, Pacific Northwest. Okay, we start to get into Friday morning. There's a first little system that could bring some heavy snow to Montana and North Dakota. By the way, pretty strong northern stream system. But then another area drops down right into here. Okay, we start to get a lot of rain showing up over Missouri, over Arkansas, cold air trailing in behind it. And then we start to get to Saturday afternoon. There's probably a developing low pressure somewhere into here. Saturday afternoon, I know this doesn't look like much. Big push of cold air behind this. We got moisture setting up right here. Okay, you keep this going. There's the low pressure that pops off. I can already tell you the European, not as aggressive of a run than it was yesterday afternoon, which is good. But this could change. Okay, but you have 1,005 millibar low pressure scooting across areas of the Midwest. South of this, you probably have some severe weather. You keep this going. And this, instead of just kind of moving to the northeast, kind of moves to the north. So it's an interesting development that snow begins to fall in Milwaukee. Still raining in Chicago Sunday morning, but could be switching to snow very soon. At this point, you have a 994 millibar low pressure. And to keep this going, rain switches to snow for Chicago Sunday afternoon. Heavy snow. This isn't a forecast. This is expected to change. And 986 millibar low pressure right over Michigan. Very strong system. A lot of heavy rain. A lot of strong winds around this low pressure. Could be having some sort of severe weather to the south of this low. And you keep this going. This low pressure just rides over Lake Huron. Delivers a lot of heavy snow for the Great Lakes region. A lot of heavy rain for all the eastern U.S., the northeast, the wind-driven rain at that. Maybe a secondary low develops right into here. Rain tries to switch to snow in areas of like the interior mid-Atlantic, then in the northeast, and then this heads on off. Okay? So that's the latest run. The difference between what I showed you last night and this morning is the Euro does not dig as much. And I'll give you a great example of that here in a second. What about the GFS? Okay, GFS, you already have a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure, but it's ejecting across the country much quicker. Saturday morning, I mean, this low pressure is over the border of Kansas and Oklahoma right here. You got snow falling in Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas, and you continue to keep this going. And it doesn't really strengthen the low pressure much. We get into Saturday afternoon. This could bring severe weather along the Mississippi Valley. Brings snow to the northwest portion of this low. Heavy snow, too, into northern Missouri, southern Iowa, areas of Kansas. All right. And then the low pressure doesn't deepen that much. You just get a 993 millibar low pressure heading into Michigan. Snow into Wisconsin. Probably a lot of weather to the south of this low pressure. A lot of strong winds. Severe weather somewhere. Okay. And then you keep this going. And this brings a lot of winter weather to areas that typically see winter weather this time of the year. Okay. To the Great Lakes region. but it would be an event where it would be rain for southern Michigan, snow up into the UP of Michigan, maybe a substantial winter event. I would watch the Great Lakes region with this system. Could be a substantial winter weather event, could not. It just depends on the placement of this low. Okay, here goes that secondary low. I do want to watch this. Secondary low tries to develop Sunday afternoon. This could be interesting for like the mountainous regions of West Virginia. Even Pennsylvania. Even Virginia and North Carolina. Secondary low develops quick enough. Cold air catches in or moves in fast enough. This could be in the form of snow. It kind of reamps the precipitation due to another low pressure developing. But I can tell you, you're going to need a lot of work with the placement of this low pressure for you folks in the Northeast to avoid just a nasty wind-driven rain event for you folks. Could be very windy, very rainy getting to the end of this weekend, and we just have to watch. It could bring some high-impact weather if the winds get very intense. A lot of rain. You guys have already seen a ton of rain, and then some cold air moves in behind it. You just got to figure out what happens behind this system. The big difference is, and I got kind of a GIF in place that shows us the previous run to the current run. So this is the current run. This is the previous run. This is the current run, previous run. So this is the run for right now. This is the run from yesterday afternoon. I don't know if you can spot the difference, but the big difference is this energy right here. We call this vortices, okay, energy. From yesterday run right here is digging deeper. The run from overnight, not as well put together and just not digging quite as deep. It really digs over kind of the central Mississippi Valley. This really digs well over, way down here in Arkansas, Louisiana. So what that says is that could potentially bring the severe weather threat a little bit north and the winter weather threat a little bit north. Okay, but this is going to change back and forth a good bit. We still are, we're still a few days out, pretty much several days out. Okay, but there is some shifts going on, and I would say the Euro actually nodded its head to the GFS somewhat. So the severe weather threat still needs to be watched. Okay, this is for Friday. Predictability too low. I do think Friday could bring some severe weather. Day 5, which is for our Saturday, still has that 15% risk up. So that means there's a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather for Saturday at day 5. Okay, that basically there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in any given location in this yellow area right here over areas of eastern Texas, Louisiana. It looks like it's moved a little bit further east into Mississippi, including Jacksonville, Greenville, over the Mississippi River, all the way up into northern portions of Arkansas. So we'll take a look, and we got deep into this last night, but we'll take a look at the main ingredients here. We'll start off Friday morning. When you have this deep digging upper trough that's digging down, it helps to bring a lot of low-level moisture. So what you're looking at here is dew points. So we're getting into Friday afternoon. Look at these dew points already climbing into the 60s. This is a thermodynamic, an ingredient for severe weather. High levels of moisture in the atmosphere at the surface. Okay, this builds in, and the latest European has moisture climbing all the way up into Missouri. And then we're getting into Saturday afternoon. Look at dew points creeping into the 60s, even into the upper 60s, maybe even 70 degrees in Louisiana. Dew points creeping to around 60 to Memphis, rounding up the Mississippi River. And then you continue to keep this going, guys. And, you would have to watch overnight, Saturday night and a Sunday morning, and then potentially watch Georgia and the Carolinas as we get into Sunday, because you see this moist sector, a lot of cool, dry air filling in behind it. But, as we get into the warmer part of the day, Sunday afternoon 18Z, which is just after lunchtime, dew points climbing into the 60s, this could support severe weather. Okay, and then I think Sunday would be our last day for severe weather. I think you're going to run the risk Friday through Sunday, Saturday potentially being your worst day. Potentially, that could change too. So you look at kinematics, which is all your winds associated with this system. What kind of favorable winds do you have? Aloft, at the surface? Well, as this upper trough digs down, you're going to have a very excited wind field aloft meaning above our heads. So these are winds at 500 millibars, which is around 19,000 feet up in the air. So that high up in the air, you got winds like over central Texas going at about 90 to 95 knots. Okay, that's over 100 miles per hour and mile per hour readings, 19,000 feet up in there. I know you're thinking, Mitch, well, what does that have to do with where we are at? Well, when you have that kind of wind energy aloft, that provides a lot of lift for storms and a lot of wind energy for these storms. Therefore, these winds could produce damaging winds even at the surface. And we will start taking a look at the low-level jet, which this is the mid-level jet. The low-level jet, when you get a little bit closer, and those are winds about a mile above our heads, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, give or take 1,000. But anyways, we'll start focusing in on that a little bit more here in the next day or two. But, you know, you start to get into, like, Saturday evening, okay? You got this 90, 95, 100-knot jet, mid-level jet screeching over Arkansas, areas of Louisiana, and then moving east. And then it strengthens even further as we're getting into Sunday, pushing well over 100 knots. And this is a lot of energy moving over the Mid-South, the Appalachian Mountains. And you got to think mountainous areas are higher up in the atmosphere. So they, you know, the higher up you live, the more you climb up into levels of the atmosphere. Therefore, you get a little bit closer to those high-end winds and the upper levels of the atmosphere. And people often wonder, well, why are these high wind events always in the mountains? Well, that's because they live higher up. They're higher up in the atmosphere. They kind of are just higher up in those more significant wind fields that are ongoing in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So, you know, this is around Sunday afternoon. You have a ton of wind energy in the upper levels of the atmosphere based off the latest Euro, screeching over areas of the Deep South. You got over 100, 110 knot mid-level jet. And you probably have a pretty intense low-level jet associated with it. Probably not. Your low-level jet is never as intense as your mid-level jet. But just think of this as a lot of kinetic wind energy for this system. And, I mean, this is eventually going to move over sections of the Northeast, too. That's why, even though this is favoring more of just rain for the Northeast, you guys could get some big-time winds with this storm system, with this system taking on a negative tilt. So I know you're thinking, Mitch, we're not going to, it's just rainstorm. Could be a significant rainstorm, maybe as corny as that sounds. It really could be. So we'll watch it. That's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. Not sure if I'll get a video in this evening, but we'll see what happens. Don't want to make any promises and then, you know, end up making a community post later on and saying, you know, sorry guys, I'm not going to make a video. I can't stand doing that. I don't want to let you guys down or anything like that. But God bless all y'all. Have a great Tuesday, and I'll talk to you soon.